What was his name? Injector?
Impactor.
Impactor.
Surprisingly, a character that comes up way more often for having a forgettable name. We couldn't even remember last episode. We kept calling him Compactor.
Injector.
Injector.
Inspector Gadget.
Inspector Pector.
Spectre General. Nothing's gonna stand in our way. Not tonight.
Too much energy.
Hooray! You're Silverbolt.
These upgrades come with a warranty.
Blah 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 blah. Beast Wars once and for all.
Cheetor, what have you done?
I am giving this episode no Energon.
What are you, a Quintesson? This is no Energon. Fuck it. I can't.
Sigma balls, Gary. No, not that.
Good evening, Filthy Organics. Welcome to episode 85 of Too Much Energon, the podcast where we talk about Beast Wars shit and talk shit about Beast Wars. Coming to you live from a mysterious floating mountain somewhere hidden on planet Energon, I'm the Siege, one of your hosts.
And somewhere on the top of, balancing precariously on the top of a cliffside next to a waterfall, it's me, NeoCal.
The Cliffs of Dover, perhaps?
The Cliffs of Dover. The Cliffs of Dover, Keen.
The Cliffs of Dovahkiin. Fos, Ro, Do Re Mi.
Fus Ro Da Re Mi.
Let's call the whole thing off. So guess what? Guess what, Cal? My computer exploded last week.
It did, but I'm curious about how it unexploded, how you're using it now.
So what ended up happening was my power supply blew. It's kind of what I figured was wrong with it. I didn't think I was going to be able to get it fixed in a fairly timely manner because I'm kind of living right now, kind of far out, not really close to stuff, if you know what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. But I ended up just taking it to a computer shop, and they happened to have one power supply in stock that met with the wattage requirements that met my needs just barely. And they only charged me $25 to just put it in for me. And I'm like, putting in power supplies is a pain in the ass. So I'll take you up on that for $25. And so here we are, the Axelon, as I like to call him, my computer here, where all of the laser comb magic happens. He's back up and running, folks. And
whatever had caused the issue, you've circumvented that, I take it.
The
Possibly?
Speculation is that it was because of I was using a old surge protector that was already in an outlet plugged into it was already in the outlet that I plugged my computer in. So it's pretty old. So I replaced it with, I have a pretty expensive Monster branded surge protector that I got on like super clearance. It was regularly, I think it was originally like an $80 like surge bar, and I think I got it on clearance for like $30.
I should get a better one.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, when they tell you that when they tell you to use good surge protectors for your computers because a power surge can fuck things up, they're not lying.
They're not lying.
So they're not just trying to sell you stuff. So take heed, ladies and gentlemen. Protect your computer.
Unlike those Decepticons, they're lying. They got propaganda floating around in this episode.
They do. As I mentioned, this is episode 85 of Too Much Energon, and this week we are talking about War for Cybertron, me, episode 3.
That's right.
Interestingly enough, the War for Cybertron trilogy, the episodes don't have titles. they're just chapter 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, which kind of fucks up the naming convention of how I like to title the episodes of the podcast. So
right, because then it becomes like episode like 85, War for Cybertron episode. Like there's multiple episodes in the title.
Yeah. So so it's a little annoying, but whatever. Here we are, born to be kings. Anyway, episode opens with like you said, some propaganda. Megatron is on a mega speaker talking about what was his name? Injector.
Inspector. I mean, I know his name, but I'm not telling you because it's funny now. Basically, we
all right. I'm just gonna call him. I'm just gonna call him something different every time I talk about him.
There you go.
So okay, so Megatron is lamenting about the death of well, not really lamenting, but he's on a mega speaker.
Using the death of Impactor to kind of exaggerate the Autobot like rebellion. And I'm like, what? The Autobots killed like one dude. Also, it was a building that crushed him. Also, he ain't even dead. That's
he
what
ain't
the reveal is.
He ain't even dead.
He ain't even dead.
But and we find this out very quickly because in this very scene, like we get introduced to Ratchet, and I'm just gonna say I really like this take on the character of Ratchet. Like he used to just be like the Autobots in G1. He was just their boring ass like medic. He's just the guy who repaired them. I have
I like Ratchet a lot in this.
I have a toy of Ratchet from the War for Cybertron line. It's a shattered glass version though, so it's basically the Transformers mirror universe.
Where he's evil.
Where he's evil. So it's the same figure in the same mold, but his color scheme is different. He's like white and purple and like kind of a really light green. It's a really solid figure though. I really dig the design of him.
So
and
go ahead.
You can see what he looks like, because as we've mentioned before, the Rooster Teeth straight up just scanned the toys. So the animation models are literally just like digital versions of the toys, so they look identical, which is cool. I actually really like that. So I've seen some people online criticize that, and I'm like, no, I dig it.
What? But that's cool. Like back when we reviewed and made it our way through Beast Machines, the biggest thing was like the way that they transformed was just kind of magical. There was barely any like kind of mechanicalness to it, and you know that the toys aren't going to look.
Oh, the Beast Machine, the Beast Machines toys are like shockingly non-show accurate.
Yeah, I was going to say there's no way that like some of them aren't even like the same size. Like there's no way that they could emulate that. Like, how do you fit Rat Trap's wheels into his rat body and like give him like a hat? It doesn't work.
Yeah, I actually I like the design of Rat Trap in Beast Machines, so I was gonna track down the toy of him from the Beast Machines line. Then I saw the toy and I'm like, not today.
Not today, Satan.
Not today, Megatron.
So you ended up buying that 2 foot tall Cheetor monstrosity instead.
Exactly. Which funny enough is actually fairly show accurate. It just took
it only had to be 2 feet tall.
Only had to be 2 feet tall. So Ratchet is wandering around
parts.
Collecting parts of Infractor here, and like throwing him into this like wheelbarrow that he's dragging. Well, he's collecting.
He comes across,
He's collecting parts in general, and he comes across Inspector here, like buried under a rock. And
Compactor. He kind of groans, and Ratchet pulls the gun on him, and he's like, "Ha! If you've come to kill me, Autobot, it's too late.
The job's already done."
I mean, you're not, so I could kill still.
He has been impaled twice forth, so
he's not doing great.
Yeah, he dying.
But yeah, maybe it cuts and changes scenes, but maybe there's more to this Ratchet than meets the eye.
I see what you did there. So we cut away to the Autobots are talking. Prime and Elita 1 and I think Wheeljack and a couple of other people are talking about the Allspark, and Optimus
This
is
is
like,
when they start going crazy, and they're like, "Well, we'll take the Allspark off planet.
yeah, yeah,
If it's going to be used for evil, we'll just take it away."
and yeah, and so Prime is like making these like grand ideas, and it's like, you don't even know where the thing is. Like,
Yeah, calm down. Find it first.
find it first, and then figure out what you're gonna do with it.
You ever have friends that like get way ahead of themselves, and they're like, "I'm gonna get this. I'm gonna open up my own like Twitch stream channel, and we're gonna have like do this, and we're gonna be like the next Critical Role, or we're gonna be the next Dr. Disrespect, or whatever the fuck is like going on." I'm like, bro, you don't even have a use it like a decent webcam yet.
Right.
Like, you're like, no, it's, yeah, you and a million other kids are gonna become famous in a week. Calm down. And that's kind of what this guy's pulling. He's all like, "Oh, we're gonna do this, and we're gonna take it off planet," and it's like, you don't even know if it's technically real. Calm your tits.
Yeah, there's still a bunch of people who regard it as being like a myth or a legend.
And indeed, kind of like behind them all, someone's talking. Who was it? Maybe I'm not sure who it was. Red Alert or somebody's talking to our to not RC, or is it?
No, we haven't met RC yet.
We haven't met RC yet. Why do I Elita? Sorry,
it's Elita
I keep calling
1,
her. Yeah. And they're like, is this insane? And Elita is like, yeah, this is a problem. Like they're not, their heads aren't even in reality at this point. And
to be fair, Elita 1 is a retool, not a straight redeco, but she's a retool of the RC figure. So I don't blame you for kind of mixing the two up.
Yeah,
the molds are similar.
I like Elita 1.
I do
actually.
too.
She's we kind of need somebody grounded.
I really like Chromia.
Yeah, she comes into her own a little bit like later, but she's rad.
Yeah,
she's good at like one thing, and by
God, she's gonna do that thing.
By the Allspark, she's gonna do that thing. That thing is sniping.
Sniping the bitches and slapping the hose.
Sniping the bitches, slapping the hose.
And so yeah, so they're Elita, I think it's Elita 1 is like, okay, Prime, so even if this actually was a good idea, taking the Allspark off world was a good idea, which it isn't, because that's just gonna, the legends say that Cybertron will die, and Prime's like, well, I won't let that happen. And they're like, all right, sure, buddy.
Well, I won't let that happen.
What are you gonna do? Build a fucking rec center or something and hope for the best?
Thoughts and prayers.
Yeah. But Elita 1's like, we don't have the power to fly the Ark.
The Ark isn't in working condition, and we don't have the energon to leave the surface of Cybertron. And if we did, I mean, we would just get shot down.
Yeah.
Like they're going to notice a ship leaving the planet.
Yeah, the Decepticons will blow us out of the sky.
And he's like, silence, logical woman. And
a Prime is talking, woman.
A Prime is talking. Run along now, Prime talk. Fuck. And I feel like the first arc of War for Cybertron Siege is me just kind of like flailing like Kermit, being like, why won't anyone listen to Elita? Like I'm kind of on the side with Magnus and Elita. I mean, yeah, he's getting tortured and held captive, but I mean, if we keep watching and find out what happens, his heart was in the right place.
Yeah. So Wheeljack pipes up and is like, wait a minute, I've got it. Remember when I was hanging out with that scavenger dude, Bumblebee? came across a space bridge. And they're like,
why didn't you tell us sooner? And he's like, do you guys remember when I was trying to tell you? And you were like, no, it can wait. No. Shush.
And they're like, well, that's all well and fine, but none of the space bridges are working anymore. And he's like, I might know a guy, you know?
I found an intact one, and I bet it could be repaired.
Yeah.
A friend of mine could repair it. Maybe. And he's like, all right, let's go meet him. And I'm like, you make a plan, Prime.
I mean, this is just this is playing in. This is potentially aiding Prime's plan because he wants to take the Allspark off world, which I think it's a bad idea. And I've seen the way this the way I've seen all of these episodes before, and I remember, lo and behold, if I recall correctly, it is a bad idea. It ends up being a bad idea.
Yeah, and then it's like, hang on, out of all the disciples of what was his name?
Alpha Trion. Yeah.
It was Magnus, Megatron, and Optimus, correct?
Yeah.
I only think one of those guys is a good guy, but we'll unravel why that is as we
it is kind of an interesting dynamic that they have going on, whereas of the three of them, Prime and Megatron are equally fanatical. They're just different sides of the coin. They're just different sides of the same coin. And Magnus is kind of like the voice of reason in the middle of them. It's an interesting dynamic, I think.
Yeah. And it's unfortunately we don't get to see that explored a lot because, you know, but as we learn about the other two, Megatron and Prime, we learn more about Magnus.
Right. So speaking of Magnus, Shockwave shows up. Shockwave shows up to talk to Megatron, and Megatron's basically like, well, have you gotten anything out of him? And Shockwave's like,
oh, I can't get anything out of him, Megatron. You're putting too many ethical limitations on what I'm allowed to do to him.
And then he's like, because he's like cleaning and fixing his arm gun, Megatron. He's like, that is the last time you will ever speak to me this way, Shockwave. And he like powers up his fucking gun and points it at his head. And I'm like, do it. Fucking do it.
You're going to regret not doing it later.
And indeed, Jetfire is like, Megatron? Like, this is when he's starting to see that like his homies ain't so cool.
So, but Megatron ends up telling Shockwave that all limitations are lifted. Do whatever you have to do to get him to talk. And then outside at some point, Starscream is like trying to rile up the troops. He's trying to rile up the Seekers and Barricade, which I find funny. It's like
Barricade's just there.
It's like it's all a bunch of Seekers, Starscream and all the other Seekers, and then just Barricade.
And I'm here too.
And I'm here too. Dude who just transforms into a police car.
Yeah, he can't fly. So, well, hey. Now here's the interesting thing. Despite everybody knowing that he's like a weasel, right, and cowardly, he is ambitious. He raises some good points, even though he's extremely selfish, in that Megatron is a bad leader, but not in the way that Starscream is suggesting.
Yeah, Starscream is saying that he's a bad leader because basically he won't. Yeah, he's soft. He's SAWFT. Soft.
And soft.
Not like me.
And Jetfire
not like
shows
me.
Up.
Look at how hard I am.
Look.
Look at it.
You cannot ignore its girth. And a girthier boy shows up, Jetfire, and he's like, heard you talking shit, you little fucker.
And Starscream's like,
and what if I was? You also suck, bitch.
What are you gonna do about it, Commander? And out of the same shadows, it's like they took turns coming down the fucking ramp. Megatron comes out of the shadows and he's like, oh, anybody that's not loyal to me is one of the enemy. Don't you agree, Starscream? And Starscream's like, oh, fuck. Yeah, I agree. Well, bye. I left the oven on. And he jumps up in the air, transforms, and fucks off. He's like, Seekers, to me.
Here's the thing with Starscream is like, yeah, he comes across as like kind of a sniveling weasel here, but the way he's acting is very realistic.
I think this is the best Starscream has been in any depiction.
Because like most of the time, IRL, when you see people who are like shit talking someone else and like trying to turn other people against them, as soon as that person shows up, they usually change their tune.
Yeah.
So Starscream's behavior.
Starscream.
Yeah, Starscream's behavior here is very realistic.
We were talking about what to get you for your birthday. That's why we clammed up. Yes.
Jetfire's Jetfire is like, actually, he was talking about your wife's tits.
How dare.
How dare. But they are magnificent, aren't they?
Mega tits. And as they fly off, Jetfire and Megatron have some words, and he's like, he's problematic, that Starscream, but he's a useful weapon. And Jetfire is like, he's more of a tool, if you ask me.
Wait,
I'm like,
yeah,
ooh.
that made me chuckle earlier. And Megatron's like, well, tools, much like weapons, are replaceable.
Well, there's some bonding. There's some secondhand man bonding going on with Jetfire and Megatron.
Right.
Yeah, I dig it.
So the Optimus and the Autobots show up to meet Ratchet, and they're like, oh, holy shit, it's you. You're like one of the greatest engineers ever. Like your weapons and like technology you've built is all legendary. And he's like, I don't do that anymore. And
indeed, when they go into his base, there's a whole bunch of inactive and injured Autobots and Decepticons.
Yeah, he set up a little like makeshift clinic.
Yeah. And something happens. They kind of get like pushy with them, because he's like, hey, I'm here to help people. I'm not going to like help you guys like make a weapon to win the war or whatever, so you can fuck off. And Trash Impactor shows up.
And guess who's here? Fuel Injector.
Fuel. Everyone's favorite. We never. And yeah, Transgressor tackles like I can't
Mirage
or somebody that's there. I thought Mirage was out pulling a heist. Oh no, that was earlier. Right.
Oh yeah, I think we missed that scene.
There's a small scene where they're trying to get to Ratchet, and they come across an outpost of some Decepticons, and Mirage goes to distract them while the others sneak by, but because they're all low on energon, his Mirage is kind of
yeah, he disguises himself as a Decepticon and like sees like straight up like killing fields, a bunch of impaled Autobots, and these two Decepticons are like, haha, look at our handiwork, isn't it great? And he's just in utter like shock.
And they're like, why the long face? Don't you like torture? Don't you like specifically they're impaled?
Yeah.
There's a lot of impaling imagery this episode. So yeah, I guess you can impale and torture Transformers the same way you can humans.
Well, and there's been a lot of debate amongst the Transformers fandom, and a lot of the consensus is that they're not merely just robots per se.
No,
they're made of like they are alive, and they're made of like a living alloy. A living metallic alloy,
and they can shrug some um like shallow wounds off, and as if their like skin is harder or made out of like metallic plates and stuff, but there is like a living body with nerves, and he can feel pain, and
like
that's why whenever there's a chunk out of them, instead of just circuitry and shit, there's just kind of like a red, there's like an energy pulp, kind of. It's hard to describe. If you've seen any of the show, you know what we're talking about. Technorganic juices. Something like that. But what happens here? Mirage's disguise is flickering in and out, and they're like, hey, he's an Autobot spy. And then Chromia shoots some, snipes some bitches and slaps some hoes, and they waste them all. So the thing is, Mirage's face is kind of mostly the same. It's just his body that kind of changes, but it's just the color. Did you notice that?
It's just his paint job and his insignia.
And that makes me think, because we've seen G1, we've seen what he can do. He can emulate whole people and different vehicles and stuff, right?
And even create copies of himself too.
And which he does very shortly here to engage in the fight. And that part's really cool. But if the only difference between an Autobot and a Decepticon externally is the paint job, why don't they paint themselves purple and green? Or like purple and like what, some Decepticon colors, right?
I think it's more about like making, especially in this version of this take on the Transformers lore. I think it's more about like making a stand. Right. Like actually like showing, like wearing an Autobot insignia and being like, yes, I'm an Autobot. I am proud of that, even though it's putting my life in jeopardy.
Right. That's fair.
Because they are at war, right?
Yeah.
The war for Cybertron.
But it's just if you're doing like reconnaissance, you could just slap a paint job on and hail Megatron and continue about your day.
Right.
But yeah, anyways, they had dealt with that. Mirage does some skills. Chromia sniped some people. Who's the guy with like the little cannon on his shoulder?
Oh, I'm not sure.
I can't remember.
That doesn't matter.
But anyway, yeah, when they're at Ratchet's, right, they were like, hey buddy, come on. Come help us repair this thing.
And we get to meet, we see Spectre General again, and he gets into it with Mirage, and he's like, I hate Autobots, and Mirage is like, I hate Decepticons.
Now Kith.
And Ratchet's like, hey, now we'll have none of that. And they're like, you treat Decepticons? He's like, I treat anyone who is injured.
And indeed, they see Impactor helping like treat the other Transformers there regardless. And that's one of his rules. He explains to the Autobots, he's like, hey, if I help you when you're up and running, you have to help the others. And indeed, Impactor's going around like helping Autobots and stuff. And I'm like, that's probably the smartest way of building like empathy and like trust. Totally. And I'm really digging like these like side characters like Impactor, Ratchet. Not really digging Bumblebee yet, but give it time.
Maybe we'll get there.
We'll get there, maybe. Yeah, so what happens? They end up convincing him, but Injector's like, but I'm coming too. He saved me, and I want to save him if he gets in any trouble.
So Ratchet is like, hey, I'm not going to help you. This is what I do. So you guys got to leave because Prime, Ratchet's like, hey, you got to leave, Prime, because you're upsetting my patients, and I can't have that here. And he's like, very well, I respect that. We'll go. Anyway, so Wheeljack goes to Ratchet and is like, hey, I understand where you're coming from, but please just hear Prime out. Hear what he has to say. And Ratchet's like, all right. And then we get this little scene where Shockwave is following up on his plan to torture Magnus. And he's like electrocuting him or something, but it's so bad that it's like straight up like making chunks of him like crumple and like break off.
Yeah, like frying him from the inside out.
Yeah.
It's a good way to convey a torture scene without actually like breaking any like PG limits because he's a machine. But yeah, I
Right.
imagine it's the equivalent of like taking off fingernails or pulling teeth or something like that. Like it doesn't look great, folks.
Yeah, yeah. And so Megatron shows up and is like, tell me what I want to know. And Magnus is like, never. So Shockwave turns up the juice until he seems like he's just about to like completely fry him. And then Magnus is like, all right, I'll give you what you want.
Yeah. And they unlash him and he falls to the ground. So some goons can like pick him up and whatever. But he has some strength left. He was fibbing.
Yeah, he breaks free, and as Megatron and Jetfire are walking away, Magnus grabs a gun from one of the guards and points it at Megatron, and he's like, turn around, and Megatron's like, no.
Face me, Megatron. You have too much honor to shoot someone in the back, Magnus.
And he's right. And Jetfire. This scene actually, I'm kind of a little out of order, but this scene actually happened earlier before the whole Starscream like trying to rally the troops.
It's two separate kind of like scenes. It's all happening adjacently, yeah. And what happens? They end up detaining him again, and indeed, he's like, "Let this be a lesson to the both of us, Jetfire. Always take the shot."
Yeah.
And I'm like, whoa, there's some more fucking life lessons there for Jetfire.
So back at Ratchet,
I would have shot Megatron right in the fucking back.
Yeah, Megatron even says to he shit talks Magnus and is like, you could have single-handedly ended the war with one shot, but your stupid fucking honor got in the way of it. You little bitch.
This is when I'm starting to be like, fuck you, Megatron. Like your version of I'm with Optimus now. As crazy as his ideas are, your vision of Cybertron is not a good one.
No, not at all. And so back at Ratchet's makeshift hospital here, Prime is explaining to Ratchet, he's like, Megatron's trying to find the Allspark, and if he does, he's going to use it to reformat all Autobots into Decepticons. And Ratchet's like, whoa, that's going a little too far. I didn't want to get involved, but you know what? I'm going to help you repair that space bridge.
And I'm coming too. And everyone's like, who are you? He's like, I'm Impactor. And they're like, sure. But they make him throw away his.
Impactor is like, because they don't want a Decepticon to come along, because they're like, well, what about you're a Decepticon? What about your loyalty to Megatron? And he's like, long before Autobots or Decepticons, I swore an oath to protect Cybertron, and that's what I'm going to do.
And that's when I'm like, man, my man, Compactor, you did it,
right? So they go off and
they make him
remove his like transmitter or something.
Yeah, his little communicator. And even one of the Autobots is like making a man like throw away his like his comm device. It ain't right.
Barbaric. Yeah,
Barbaric
I think it's Ratchet. I think it's Ratchet who says it.
And it's like, he's not ripping his dick off. Calm down. It's like a little chip that they all have like in their head. But indeed, it starts blinking red.
Yeah. And Skywarp and Jetfire are flying through the air, and they're like, wait, did you detect that?
And they're like, transgressor? No, injector. Compactor's alive. And they fly down to look for where the signal was coming from.
And so here's the thing: is the Autobots like make Inspector Gadget here like rip his like transmitter or whatever it is out. They make him do it right as they leave the Autobot base, or like Wait, no.
Ratchet's
Okay, I'm a little confused now. Ladies and gentlemen, I watched this episode earlier, and it's been a few hours now, and I'm kind of just going from memory.
I watched it right before this, and I
So how did Jetfire and Skywarp find what was it, the Ark that they found, or was it Ratchet's hospital that they found?
I think it's the hospital.
Oh,
But they think it's the Ark.
okay,
Mirage
okay.
technology. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So I was a little confused about that.
Yeah. It's the hidden kind of hologram of the entrance to, unless I'm wrong. It's in which case it'd be like, how did they find the Ark? But no, I think it's Ratchet's like hospice.
Yeah, and that's the only thing that kind of made sense to me. That's why. But then I started thinking about it. I'm like, wait, what?
Right.
I don't know. Anyway,
and indeed, despite the fact that they have these long-range comm devices, and despite the fact that Magnus sent a message all the way back to the Ark from the Biodome, from Madison Square Garden, inside of a Hell in a Cell, it was Skywarp and Jetfire are debating, and hey, we need to go tell Megatron right away. And I'm like, can't you tell him right now?
Right.
Shouldn't the Seekers of all people have long-range comm devices? You're able to detect like impactors just now, but you can't send a message back home.
To be fair, it seems like they were just happened to be randomly flying overhead.
Maybe they were closer.
Yeah.
And Jetfire is like, well, no, hang on, Skywarp. We need to get them to surrender.
Yeah, because Skywarp is like, let's go tell Megatron, and then we can annihilate them. And he's like, wait a minute, no, we should give them the opportunity to surrender. And Skywarp's like, no, fucking pussy, we go in and kill them.
And again, Jetfire is like, well, like, we're not the good guys if we're committing genocide,
right,
my dude. And Skywarp's like, I don't care, I'm bad. And he's like, not on my watch, and he shoots him in the fucking back.
And he's like,
and I'm like,
Starscream was
shoot people.
You're right. Well, this actually like circles back to what Megatron told him earlier. He's like, take the shot. It's a lesson to both of us. Always take the shot. And so he did take the shot. Just wasn't a very good shot because it barely damages Skywarp.
And Skywarp's like, fuck you. I knew it.
Fuck you. Starscream was right.
And he just flies away. And Jetfire watches him, and I'm like, homie.
And he apologizes. He's like, sorry, bro. And just lets him fly away. And it's like, okay, so now not only have you failed in protecting the people in this hospital, because now he's just going to go tell Megatron and bring back the other Seekers, and they're going to go in and go on a killing spree. But now he's going to tell Megatron that you betrayed him.
Kind of.
So like
he should have.
So what I'm saying is
nothing. All or
nothing. Yes. Finish if you're gonna go that far with it, finish the job.
Don't shoot a dude in the shoulder and then say sorry and let him go. Like,
right.
And guess what? A little bit later in the episode, Skywarp gets back and he's like, Starscream. And right before he passes out, he's like, Jetfire, traitor, found Ark. And Starscream's like, ooh, now's my chance to take over as commander. Well, commander of the Seekers.
Commander of the Seekers, yeah.
Air Commander Starscream of the Decepticon Battle Fleet.
And what do we got here? Oh, and then there's the episode started with it, and now it ends with it. Giant Megatron propaganda speech. Because the propaganda speech at the very end is like, hey, those Autobots are defiling one of our holiest of relics, the Ark. And not only that, they also
I think he says that Optimus Prime, or the Autobots, plan to steal the Allspark, which gives life to our planet. They're going to steal it and take it off world to destroy us.
The very heart of our beloved planet.
Yeah.
So let's go fuck them up.
Yeah.
And everybody's cheering. Woo!
And that's pretty much the end of the episode. So That
And
was
what is he? He puts his hand up in the air and he's like, "Till all are one," and
Oh,
everyone's
right.
like, "Ooh, genocide, genocide." So the way this ends is very much how finally flipping over. Before it was like, "Hey, come and give up. Come to our stations, our surrender stations, right? Come
Right.
to our surrender stations, give up, you'll be treated like kindly, end this freaking war." And now at the very end, they're like, "No, fuck around and find out." And that's what you guys are doing. Okay, everybody, fuck, go get them, go nuts, go ham, kill them
so
all.
long.
Let God sort them out. Kill them all and let the Oracle sort them out. So
Yeah, that was the episode. And that was episode 3 of War for Cybertron Siege. And here on Too Much Energon, we have a 3-tiered rating system where we rate episodes of Beast Wars, Beast Machines, War for Cybertron, the Japanese Beast Wars movies, Beast Wars comic books,
the movie.
the Transformers the movie. We actually haven't done that on this podcast proper yet. Maybe that can be a Christmas holiday special.
There we go.
Anyway, whatever we feel like talking about on any given week, we rate on the Too Much Energon scale, which ranges from not enough Energon to a sufficient amount of Energon to too much Energon. It's basically bad, okay, good. Cal, what you rating this episode?
There's not a lot of progress made in it, like to move the show along, but there's a lot of character development. And I feel like that little seeing trash compactor and Jetfire in the very least act neutrally rather than being complete turncoats. Again, Impactor had said, no, I serve what's best for Cybertron. And I'm like, yeah, okay, yeah, this Impactor guy is kind of cool. And I like Ratchet. Who knows where is Bumblebee even shown in this episode?
No, he's not in this episode. Last we saw him, he stole that condensed Energon cube.
Yeah, he was just walking off into the sunset being like, I'll be able to retire with this. And I'm like, where? One of the many ruins? The field upon which I grow my Deceptibucks. Behold, for it is bare. But because of the character development and seeing both Megatron and Optimus kind of become more unstable, more fanatical, it reaches too much Energon for me. It's one of the good ones.
I am going to second the too much Energon rating. I actually think this is a pretty dense episode.
It is. It's dense. That's why we were kind of beat for beat, like jumping around, because a lot happens, but most of it is important character development.
Yeah, I really like Ratchet. This take on Ratchet so far.
Yeah.
I like the more I like the more nuanced approach this show is taking to Autobots and Decepticons. It's like you're not inherently evil just because you're a Decepticon, and you're not necessarily good or in the right if you're an Autobot. And there's middle ground on both sides.
Yeah,
it feels a lot more realistic because
this is a crunchy episode. Yeah, this is like shit got real, and
yeah.
That's why I like War for Cybertron, actually. So you're mirroring that, like you're giving it too much Energon.
I am.
And on that note, there's one thing that I wanted to mention. Impactor, when he's arguing with everyone at the hospice, Ratchet's like clinic,
Right.
He says, "Hey, Autobot Elite, that you've been sitting so pretty, drinking your margaritas, like hanging out, like watching Netflix, not a care in the world. I was in the Energon mines. Like,
Yeah.
we're the slave cast of Transformers. I like dug through the muck, and we had nothing to live for but to like fight and to like work until we died. You don't get to tell me like what's best for Cybertron. So we
Right.
get a little glimpse there that it's like, so what's that all about?
There's some class conflict going on there.
Because that's not that explains why certain purple and green dudes are awfully angry, and it's rolling out some story and history beats, which it does more and more throughout the show. And chef's kiss.
Mhm.
I'm a fan.
That was and on that note, that was episode 85 of Too Much Energon. Best way to support the show, go to patreon.com/lazorcomb, LAZORCOMB. $5 and up tier, you get hours of bonus preamble audio of us kind of talking about this, that, or the other thing before we get into doing the shows that we do week in and week out proper. You also get a monthly commentary track and a whole bunch of other stuff. $10 tier, you get our news and current events program, Lasercomb Tonight. And you also get to pick a show for us to review a random episode of on our other podcast, the Lasercomb podcast. So go check that out. Patreon.com/Lasercomb. And I was about to say Facebook. You can go to facebook.com/Lasercomb to follow us there, or you can follow the show on, you can follow me on Twitter at Lasercomb, or you can follow the show proper on Twitter at Too Much Energon. And Cal, you are at?
I am at NeoCal, NEO_KAL.
We'll be back next week with episode 86 of Too Much Energon, where we'll be talking about War for Cybertron Siege, Chapter 4. And
Chapter 4.
Until then, I've been one of your hosts, The Siege.
And I'm your other host, NeoCal.
And until next week, that'll be 1 million Deceptibucks.
Till 1 million Deceptibucks are won. That's inflation for you.
Bye-bye.
Swollen belly's gonna make y'all stop. Take a minute and remember who takes the top. To the critics and the cynics, your time is up. Just admit it and rewind it, but this rhyme is up. It's hot. Swollen belly's gonna make y'all stop. Take a minute and remember who takes the top. To the critics and the cynics, your time is up. Just admit it and rewind it, but this rhyme is up. It's hot.
Perfected but not invented. Rhymes from the ego-driven, self-centered. Entered the fast lane and never got dented. Life in a flash, pipes, buds, and hash. 3 of my favorites, 4 of us made this. More hits in the majors, up from the minors. Bust from the top, duck cops and sirens. Fresh out the shop, popping and styling.
Mad chops, wildin', non-identical. The cynical's medical condition is critical. Unforgettable, swollen members beautiful. Language unsuitable, tension and tonic. Coastal chronic, track got mocha on it. Independent with a different perspective. Select effective, next or exit. The young at the restless, full, you'll inject it.
Swollen belly's gonna make y'all stop. Take a minute and remember who takes the top. To the critics and the cynics, your time is up. Just admit it and rewind it, but this rhyme is up. It's hot. Swollen belly's gonna make y'all stop. Take a minute and remember who takes the top. To the critics and the cynics, your time is up. Just admit it and rewind it, but this rhyme is up. It's hot.
I'm thinking of putting in my Tinder profile, must hate dogs.
Must hate dogs.
Because people put like must love dogs as like a common
Just to be
thing.
funny, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's also sincere.